Hello everyone, my name is Akif Nawaz. I welcome you all to Literature with Khalid. In today's class, we're going to talk about what is a clause and what are the different types of clauses. The first one is noun clause, verb clause, adjectival clause, and adverbial clause. So before that, in the previous lecture, I have discussed what is a clause, what is dependent, and what is independent clause. So I hope कि उनकी आपको समझ आ गई होगी. Now let's take our discussion further and let's try to understand that what are these different types of clauses. So the first one is, let me revise what is a clause. So a clause is a group of words that has a subject and a predicate. So it can function as a complete sentence and sometimes part of a sentence. An independent clause called as a complete sentence, and dependent clause is actually the part of a sentence. But the important thing is that both have a subject and a predicate. So I have the example here, because she studied hard, she passed the exam. Now, if you look at this example from right after the comma, she passed the exam. Now, this statement or this clause can stand on its own, and it doesn't need any other words to convey complete sense meaning. So that is why we can say that this is an independent clause. It is totally independent. It doesn't depend on anything else. So that is what makes it independent clause. The next one is because she studied hard. Now, if you read this clause without reading the further part of the sentence, so we get the idea that this is actually a dependent clause because it provides some sense but not complete sense, and it depends on what's coming next, right? So that is why that is what it makes as a dependent clause. So let's take our discussion a bit further. The first type that we have is a noun clause. So noun clause is something that acts as a noun in a sentence. Noun क्या होता है? The name of a person, place, or thing, and usually it comes right before a verb or a helping verb. So यहाँ पर आप देखें, what she said surprised me. Now यहाँ पर आप देखिए, the verb starts from here. This is the verb, surprised everyone. So before that, before a verb, we most of the times call it as a noun. So now let's talk about that. Usually a subject. So the clause, what she said, functions as a subject of the sentence, telling us what caused the surprise. Now, look, the thing is, subject is usually the doer of an action, right? So what she said actually here performs the role of a subject, because this shows us in a sentence telling us that what caused the surprise, right? Now, that is what we need to call it as a noun clause. The next one is whether he will come is unknown. Now, in this sentence here, whether he will come serves as the subject indicating unknown information. Whether he will know, whether he will come is unknown. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that it is preceded right by there comes a helping verb or a verb right after it, and it performs the function of a noun and comes at the place of a subject. So that is why we need to call it a noun clause. अब यहाँ पर आप देखिए, the next one that we have is the verb clause. Now verb clause क्या है? Verb clause functions as the predicate of a sentence, usually conveying an action or state. Means के एक ऐसा clause जो के predicate of the sentence कहलाया जाए, so हम कह सकते हैं कि that is a verb clause. Now for example, he can swim faster than anyone. Now which one is the verb clause? Let's discuss that. Can swim is a verb clause which acts as the predicate describing the action that he can perform. Now can swim basically is a verb clause because it describe, ये हमें बताता है कि किसने कोई काम perform किया है. So that is why we can say that this is a verb clause. The next one is she is reading a book. So is reading is the verb clause showing the ongoing action performed by she. So that is why a predicate most of the time is called as a verb clause. Okay, so I hope you would have got this idea too. Now let's talk about the adjectival clause, which is also called as a relative clause. So before adjectival clause, we need to understand what is an adjective. Adjective basically modifies or gives us extra information about noun most of the times. So we can say that an entire adjectival clause or relative clause describes or modifies a noun. Now let's talk about it. The book that you have gave me was excellent. Now यहाँ पर आप देखिए that you gave me. Now that you gave me actually gives us information, extra information about the book. So the clause that you gave me modifies the noun book, providing additional information about which book is being referred to. So हम कह सकते हैं कि that you gave me actually gives us extra information about the book. वो कौन सा book? जो आपने मुझे दिया था. So that is why we can say that this modifies a noun. So this entire clause becomes adjectival phrase or adjectival clause or relative clause. Now the next one is the woman who lives next door is a doctor. अब यहाँ पर आप देखें the woman who lives next door. So who lives next door actually gives us information about the woman कि कौन सी औरत जो आपके बिल्कुल पास रहती है. Describes the noun woman, specifying which woman is being talked about. Now, one more thing that you need to keep in mind is that why it is called as a relative clause, because it is introduced by a relative pronoun. So who basically is a relative pronoun. We'll be discussing pronouns in detail as well, in which I'll be discussing it in detail further. Okay, the next clause that we have is adverbial clause. So adverbial clause acts as an adverb. Again, जिस तरह adjectival phrase clause modify कर रहा था noun को, इसी तरह हमारे पास adverbial clause जो है ये function perform करता है as an adverb, जो कि किस चीज को modify करेगा, ज्यादातर verb को करेगा, adjective और another adverb को भी कर सकता है. Now, she sang as if she were a professional. Now, as if she were a professional. Now, basically, this gives us information about the verb sang, that how this action took place. So, this action took place like a professional. I hope you're getting it. कि उसने कैसे गाया? So, ये गाया is a verb और इसको ये modify कर रहा है like a professional, right? So as if were a professional modifies the verb sang, indicating the manner in which she sang. The next one is, I will call you when I arrive. Now, when I arrive. Now, this is something that gives us information about the verb call. That when am I going to call you? When I arrive. So, that is why we can say when I arrive acts as an adverbial clause specifying the time of the action will call. So I hope you would have got the idea